Hey everybody, welcome to this demonstration on hard surface techniques in ZBrush. Um, so this is going to be a relatively involved little series here, and I'm going to show you how to model pretty much everything on screen, as much as I can get to anyways in a reasonable amount of time. This concept is by Frederick Gardner. I'll link him in the description of this video because he's an amazing artist for Warner Brothers. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to start with this first dial right here. I usually typically work kind of like largest to smallest. So I'm going to do this dial, then this one, then maybe this bolt and this tube, and then this generator little piece here, and then a couple of these knobs and bits. Let's go over to ZBrush, and I'm just going to initialize my ZBrush just to make sure I don't have anything crazy going on. And the first thing I would want everyone to do is, one second here. All right. I'm going to be using these tools in my custom palette. So if you want to, you can screen grab this because just for speed's sake, I'm not going to go to every button in the menu and show you where it's at. So if you screenshot this, I'll tell you what the tool is, and you can always look it up later if you missed where I pressed. So just a little caveat in the beginning. So I'm going to set up a spotlight here, just so I have my reference on the screen. Gotta go find it. Right there. Back to texture. I'm gonna click find that texture and then add it to spotlight. And then we're gonna get it in our background. And I'm just gonna kind of leave this over to the side. And I may just turn that on and off while we work. Um, and just a quick thing under brush, we want to make sure under samples we turn off spotlight projection, um, or else if I get down in here, I won't be able to it'll mask it off basically. So if I go down here and make a mask, now it's going behind the spotlight. All right, and then I typically just start her up with just a cube here in our subtools, and then we'll just start going. So I'll start with a basic cylinder for this dial. So I'll just click on my move tool, click this little gear, and then I'll get these primitives and I'll just use a, let's see, cylinder 3D or cylinder 3D, this will work. And I'm just going to accept that, go back to my gizmo, scale this down. And I'm not using orthographic reference, so all this stuff is going to be eyeballed and approximated and everything. Um, so if I'm looking at this, I'm going to go into my Z modeler. And we're going to move this edge loop or slide this edge loop complete just to move that down. So I'm going to get this little outside ring there. And then in QMesh over a poly. And then again, a little review for Z modeler. We have targets, actions, targets, and modifiers. So the target that I want would be this poly loop. So poly loop QMesh. And then I'm going to pull this out. If that ever happens to you where it's going the wrong direction, you just want to make sure this little tick arrow is going the direction you want to extrude from. So if I want to extrude this direction, we get this arrow. If I want to go this way, we get this one. So there, I'm just going to pull this out. we'll just say about there. That works. Easy enough. So let's deal with this top part. So we have a bit of a ridge. So I'm going to Q mesh. Actually, I'm going to inset. Actually, let's try a different one. I'll try a different tool. I'm trying to hit as many of these tools as I can. Let's go ahead and split a point. So I'm going to roll over this center point, hit split, and then I'm just going to go like this. And that's just going to make that edge. And then next, this is going to have to be pushed in. So I'm going to Q mesh this, and we'll do a polygroup island, which is this is a polygroup and it's an island, and we'll just press this down. And looking at our reference, we'll just go to about there. All right, I'm going to turn that off, give us a full screen here. And I'm going to bring this up on a second monitor just so I can see it a lot bigger. Okay, so we've got this, there's this inset that happens right here to where it has like this piece and this piece. So this is glass and this is metal. So we have the metal piece, but we need to get the glass piece. So to do that, I'm going to use live booleans. So I'm going to go ahead and just append in a new cylinder. So we'll just use a cylinder 3D to be fine. Scale that. Whoops. Scale that down. Hold shift. Rotate it. Scale it up some more. Just eyeball that edge. I'm going to hit D for active subdivisions or dynamic subdivisions. So I'm going to hit D down here just so I can get an idea of the volume while it's smooth. This doesn't need to be subdivided yet. Just double checking that edge, and I think that's gonna work for us. All right, so I'm gonna solid just this cylinder here. And we're gonna need to append in another cube. So we'll just bring a cube in, grab that, turn off my solo mode. And we've got this cube here. And then what we're going to do is just basically create a kind of an intermediary cut. So we're going to make a Boolean cutter by cutting a Boolean into this. So I'm just eyeballing again, just with the reference. And just for the sake of cleanliness, I'm going to make this large. And my live Boolean button is activated, and I'm going to cut away by clicking here. And then now we've got this live cut. So if I want to move this around, I can. Looks like this might be a little bit thinner. And that works. So once I'm happy with this object, I'm just going to go to Boolean and I'm going to go ahead and do dynamic subdivision and then make a Boolean mesh. And you'll see we get this mesh up here. So I can just go to append, mesh, and I'll hide these two objects. We've got this Boolean object set for us. So I'm just going to click this one, delete, click this one, delete. Then I've got my Boolean mesh. Subdivide that, and it's going to look really, really bad. And all I really care about is kind of these edges. So we're going to turn on our polyframe. I'm just going to Z-remesh this really quick just to get a little bit better geometry. So I'm going to do keep groups, turn off adapt, smooth groups down to 0, and detect edges and Z-remesh and see what we get. Perfect. That works. So now when we subdivide this, we get a nice smooth mesh, which fits exactly what we want. So I'm going to set this to subtract, bring back our other object, and there we go. We have our glass area. So this to me still looks like it's a little bit, it needs to be a bit smaller. So maybe something like that. The perspective in the concept art, it's not really dealing with the perspective. I mean, it correct perspective, um, but sometimes you just have to interpret this stuff on your own, which that looks good. So I'm just going to put a plane in there to represent the glass because we're not going to get into materials or anything like that. So I'm just going to append in a plane 3D and then scale this down. And then with my move brush, I'm just going to get these little edges back in here. Never going to see them, so they don't matter. And then let's go ahead and just move this up. So we have a piece of glass, like so. And then let's go ahead and get these this piece fixed because it needs some creasing. So we should be able to get away with just auto creasing here. Let's just do a crease all, and that did not work. Let's see, we're gonna need, there we go, just a crease with a tolerance of 45, which is the degree angle in which it'll put a crease. And this is where we want those creases. So back, turn off polyframe, go back to my subdivide. So for our dynamic subdivisions, I'm going to sub this up to at least 3 because it's going to be like a final res. There we go. Beautiful. See our plane is sticking out just a little bit. So I'm just going to push that in. There we go. Great. All right, so we still have we're active subdivisions here. I'm going to go ahead and finish this Boolean out. So I'm just going to make a Boolean object. Hide the plane. So I just want, when you're Booleaning, whatever is visible is going to Boolean off the object the subtool you have selected. So I'm going to grab this subtool, go to Boolean, and you know what? I'm going to keep subdivision off and just Boolean it. So we've got our object here, which is fine. We've got these kind of screwed up polygroups again, which is okay. We'll go back again to ZRemesher. Let's see if we keep groups, detect edges, smooth groups to 0. We even turn off adapt and just see what we get. All right, that's not going to work. Oh, we've got creasing, I think, in here. So let's see, what do I want to do with this? I think the outer part looks fine. It's just this inner part, this green area. So I'm going to isolate this. Try to isolate this. So let's see if I can get, I need this piece, and this piece. I think that's all I need here. And I'm going to turn on display double-sided just because it's getting a little confusing. There we go. I think that's, oh, I need that circle area, this area here. There we go. And I do not need this area. Oh. All right, so I'm going to have to separate this out. Because these two are the same polygroup. So I can just use my ZModeler brush and then holding down or going over an edge, we'll target faces, and then we want to polygroup, and we'll do a poly loop. Now we've got a polygroup there. There we go. That's isolated. So this is its own thing. And just to, oh, let's get this. That's going to be its own polygroup too. So let's go ahead. How can I get this off of here? Well, let's go ahead. I'm just going to split this. Just to make sure I Z-remesh this correctly. So now I need to get this red poly group to be something else. So, and I'm just going to hit the Alt key. Oops. All right, so that's its own group. Now this should isolate. There we go. And I'm just going to go ahead and do another split hidden and then merge these together. Now we should have a nice piece. There we go. Now this should Z-remesh hopefully okay. We'll see what happens. We'll turn off detect edges, keep groups. I'm going to turn adapt on, see what we get. That's still not what I want. Let's try bringing that poly count down. All right, it's getting there. Let's just turn off adapt to see what we get. Almost. All right, I think we got it there. Yeah, so let's go here. Take a look at that. So we're gonna have to scale this up a little bit, but that's totally fine. Now we lost our creasing, which is another issue. So let's go back in here, go into our crease, and we'll crease at 45. Crap this one, crease, subdivide these. They should line up just fine. And we'll just scale the center piece up just a little bit, just to make sure we're not getting any gap there, which is okay. And we lost our glass somehow. I must have deleted it. So let's put another plane back here. Actually, let's merge these back together so they're one piece. And then append. Whoops. Don't want to duplicate that. Append. Plane 3D. Scale that into there. Back to the move brush. And there is our dial. So let's go ahead and save. All right. So next up, we have that, there's kind of a center little, this little thing right here. So I'm going to make that real quick. I'm not going to match it exactly because I don't have that orthographic reference, but we should get something pretty good pretty quick. So let's go ahead and do another plane 3D. Make it poly mesh. Turn off smooth. We're going to hit divide a couple times and then divide a couple more times. Got about 1,000,000, which is fine. We just need a smooth drawing surface. So delete lower, turn off our poly frame, and turn on our symmetry. So I'm going to try to do this with the mouse and curves. See what we can do here. So mask curve, we kind of have this little dip here. So if and I'm just experimenting just real quick. If I bring this out to about there, almost. All right, that works. And we're gonna mask this way down to here. Kind of there. I'm gonna invert my mask and just get rid of some of this. I think I just screwed that up. Gonna go out of my curve into my lasso and just grab this. And we'll good. I don't care about that little blurry area, so I'm just gonna mask this off. Mask this off. So we get that, and then there's a little circle in between there. So let's go to our perfect circle. And I'm gonna say right around there. Again, I'm kind of eyeballing this. This is a bit more on the cartoony side, so it's not gonna make that big of a deal. So we'll go there, and then we're gonna go there. And then there's another one, there's another full circle, say around here. And then there's a little cutout of the circle there. Then we're going to use the rectangle. And there we go. Now I'm just going to hit Control W. You can see that made a polygroup. Delete hidden. So now I've got this. I'm going to try, let's try edge, nope. Let's try group loops. That's going to be kind of hard to see. It should have created, you know what? Let's undo that. Create one loop. There we go. Creates a poly group around here. And then what I can do is go down to deformation, and we can do a polish by groups. And we repeat that a few more times. That works. Now we're going to go back to our trusty Z-remesher. Let's do a keep groups and adapt. Let's just get that. See what we get. Not great. So let's turn keep groups adapt. Bring this down. Better. Turn that off. We'll go to half. Ooh. So we're getting some errors in here. It looks like it. Yeah. So I'm just going to grab this center poly group because it's decent enough. This is okay. And then I'm just going to Z-remesh this again. Oh, there's still. So if this ever happens, you get this weird stuff. Usually the first thing I do is go to weld points with a distance that's pretty low. Oops, weld points. Then mesh integrity, check mesh, and it's text some multiple references, so we're gonna fix that. All right, and check it one more time and fix it one more time. Okay. Now we hit Z Remesher this time, we should get, okay, or is that we're still getting flipping there. Okay, so this is an instance where I may dump this to Maya. Not sure what's going on here. I'm gonna pause the video real quick and troubleshoot this. Okay, we're back. Just need to mess around with Z Remesher. Finally got it to a decent spot. I'm still not as low as I would want. If I was doing this for real, I would probably continue to low res this manually. The problem is we've got these big kind of wide areas and these small areas, and ZBrush has problems with that. Um, no biggie. We lost a little bit of our edge here, so I'm just going to go back and clip some of this, just so we have a kind of a perfect rectangle. Oof. Or leave it. Maybe I'll just smooth it. Yeah, it's such a small piece. It's good enough. So to give this some depth, I'm just going to go over here to brush Z modeler, turn off symmetry, and then I'm going to Q mesh and polygroup all. Oops. And go ahead and Q mesh it out. And this is such a small piece, I'm not going to bevel it or anything. We'll just call that done. So now that I've got this named, I'll just call this Gauge01 needle. Go back and find our object wherever it may be. I think it's this one. Yep, it's this one. No, no, it's not. Here we go. This one. This naming's important. um, and if it's interesting, this is something to point out in your subtool palette. Whichever subtool is active when you go away from this subtool, it's what's got the name. So like even if I go here, it says Gauge01, I would have known that, but I had this one selected. So renaming is kind of a thing. So we'll just call this glass, and then we're going to append in our needle. And we'll just we'll just scale this in. Let me check my reference real quick. So it looks like it's pretty much the whole length of this glass area. A little bit smaller. And then it pins in right there. And just so it doesn't look weird, normally you would do this in texture. I'm just going to append in another cylinder. That works. All right. So we're good here. So next up, we'll add these bolts around the outside edge. So grab our object here. And I'm just going to guess the amount. So we're going to use an insert mesh brush for this. So let's go to our Z modeler brush, and let's go to, where is the insert? We can insert a nanomesh. Let's try this. We're going to just try it. I don't want to jump into nanomesh, so let's go to our IMM parts brush. Let's grab a bolt head. And I'm just holding down the space bar to position this. And I'm going to hit Control, and that's going to set the size, and that size is based off of my cursor here. So if I make the cursor bigger and hit Control, it's going to make it that big. So this is how you can get consistent size in your IMMs. So let's just go ahead and hit Control. That works. So we could do this. We could do this symmetrically. So let's do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 16. So let's go ahead and turn on our transform, active symmetry. We're pointing in the Z direction. Turn mirror, we'll turn radial on, and we'll turn this to 16. And we should line this up. There we go. Hold down Control, and our bolts are done. Those are probably a little bit big, but oh well, looks good enough. It looks to me like this piece here needs to be a little bit shallower, so let's go ahead and isolate that. And I'm going to mask these points, the top points, invert that mask, go to my move tool, center it, turn my symmetry off, and then we're just going to drag this down to make it smaller. And then this part, dang it. So isolate this part, grab these points, invert, move, go ahead and just reset. Push this down. Yeah, I don't want to do that. Yeah, this is good enough. Just move our glass up. Move our needle up. And I think that is it. All right, we're going to call that the dial is done. And then next up, we'll go ahead and move to the second dial.